What surprised me was that he argued so vehemently with someone on the channel.
You don't have that kind of authority, mister.
I spun around to the window. A tall man with a spotty gray, whiz-cut hair, very close to his skull, waved his arms. He had blue dog eyes and repeatedly exposed his lower teeth. Who the hell is that?
That, my friend, is Mr. Buck Wiley.
What a bilge loader. Wiley wore a charcoal-colored suco and paced around a room loaded with scanners and communications consoles. His voice was grating from the first word.
I don't have to tell you anything. You're asking questions about an ongoing investigation. And I'm the Station 32 officer in charge, pal.
Well, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Wiley squinted.
Ain't that nice? And who the hell are you?
Bill McCabe, ISB.
I don't see no identification on my zip.
Rennie slipped me a disc with the phony information. I stuck it into the communications port. Wiley leaned over and placed both hands on the counter and read the data.
Checks out. So you're the guy. We told the Bureau and the Intra we don't want to be inundated with off-Tritoners.
It's just me and Mr. Coburn.
To me, this Belkin thing is plain and simple, an accident.
Wiley appeared as if he didn't want to know anything that might require him to perform extra duties. Right, I know that. All I'm asking for is Mr. Coburn and myself to do our job.
Well, don't expect me to be your lackey. I won't be intimidated by the Bureau.
Mark Belkin, where is he?
I told that guy,
he said, raising his index finger,
to back off.
It was his wife, Inspector.
I don't care if she was Neptune's mother. I'm aware of her resources assignment. We tracked her from her arrival and her setup, even on her night walks with her husband. Nothing out of the ordinary, and I ordered surveillance cut back.
Oh, really? There are things going on with Jenna Belkin, and you know it, Buck.
You're dreaming.
I'm aware that Station 32's colony has 5 million people, and the conditions are not good.
Now I'm dealing with a social critic,
he said to the man behind him.
Look, this place is what it is.
I thought back about my short stay on Station 32 years ago. The dome was situated on the southern edges of a moon of Neptune, a distant settlement far out of the Intra solar system. Station 32 first housed uranium and metal miners from the prodigious Ice Mountains. It was a prosperous area until about 50 years ago, when the Jovian moon mines began booming. Wild stories, including a-human sightings, abounded this far out. Now Station 32 had a large populace with not enough jobs. People lived in crowded conditions and went to bed hungry. Jenna Belkin's visit to Triton was to help conditions on Station 32. Was there anything about her being there that would cause someone to be upset? Wiley shrugged his shoulders.
No, not at all. Unless you believe in little creatures and star trackers.
Jenna always talked about the possibility of off-solar life, a-humans.
She was originally here years ago. Look, McCabe, the old-time miners had legends. That's what happens when you have nothing to do.
Triton is a moon of Neptune. The ice of Triton is the name of the story. But the story doesn't begin on Triton. It begins in Africa. Strange packets called Revine energy packets, lethal to a human being, were found outside of Commissar Nevis's home. Harry Cobb had postponed his vacation aboard a cruise liner to go with Rennie and Sadie to Nevis's funeral in Cape Town, South Africa. It is here where he spots Felix Alder, now the director of the Intra Solar System Bureau. John O'Neill, his former boss, had earned the directorship of the Intra Solar System Bureau, held by Felix Alder. His assistant, Phil Severinsen, also known as his executioner, is at the funeral. He has suspicions that Severinsen fired both Cobb and O'Neill from the Bureau. Rennie goes back to the transition zone after the funeral. Harry thinks how Alder was so brutal, and Phil Severinsen was only accounted to Alder. His friend Mark Belkin was supposed to meet him on the cruise liner where they would talk about his wife, Jenna's retirement. In one of the zip messages, he said he needed Harry's help. They had a rendezvous on a Callisto-based cruise liner in the Intra-Solar System. Then he gets a call from Mark Belkin saying everything was about to fall apart. The signal has emanated from Station 32 on Triton, a moon of Neptune. Mark Belkin tells Harry that he has to take refuge from forces not yet formed. that they'll kill us both, and he says Nevis won't make it. And afterwards, Nevis was killed. The frequency went static. That was 4 days ago. Harry sprawls out on a recliner in an arboretum on the cruise liner. He wants to contact his old boss, John O'Neill, now working for Harkin Energy on the moon. A slender woman with dirty blonde hair and brilliant green eyes moves through the arboretum. She tells Harry that her name is Paper Rose too, but Harry can call her Angelique. Harry says that Angelique made him forget about how upset he was about Mark and Jenna and the message he had got in his zip. Angelique is with Horace Valencia and his oracle players around the Intra solar system. She invites Harry to a concert at the Newport Dome, and then is with her at 3 a.m. alone in the recliners. He's babbling out Damocles poems and the possibility of Nevis being murdered. Harry is later by the pool and orders a Dante's blaster from an obnoxious waiter. He thinks about Phil Severinsen. He and Alder are what is known as an absolutionist, who advocate a strong central leader in the intrasolar system. Felix Alder's inauguration, if it takes place, will be along the Chesapeake at Annapolis. Felix Alder will unite the far elements of the solar system, according to Severinsen. Alder emerged from behind the curtain. He was a truth twister from way back. Harry dives in the pool, but he's thinking of Angelique. He also thinks he needs O'Neill's advice. He thinks back to when he met Mark Belkin when they were both 27 years old, how their assignments had crisscrossed over the years. He and Jenna had bought land on the Tempest settlement on Ganymede for retirement. Mark balanced joint ledgers throughout his career. Jenna had another 12 months to go at Resources, a company that brought food to the poor on distant planets and moons. He lifts the Dante's blaster to his lips. It was almost boiling, yet the drink was chilled with micro ice inside to keep it cold for hours. He felt a sudden tingle, a blast. The blaster simulated a full body massage. A Hebon is flashing on his zip. It's a memo from Angelique, and is also Rennie calling him about information about Jenna. At this time, Alder secures the assembly vote and he will become the next commissar. Rennie says the Bureau is watching illegal energy shipments to a warehouse on Triton, and Jenna was possibly transporting ravine packets to that warehouse. John O'Neill got Rennie the information. Rennie tells Harry that this conspiracy reaches to the highest levels of power, and there's ravine missing on Station 32 on Triton. Harry hasn't been back to Triton for 15 years. Before Jenna was in Resources, she was a researcher for the extraterrestrial sites in the exosolar system. Rennie tells Harry if he's going to Triton to carry a pulsar. Harry knows that Jenna would never do anything illegal or unethical. She was a food coordinator from way back, after the archaeological major she had in college for extraterrestrial life, but she changed it to getting food for the poor. She and Mark had no children, only their careers. Angelique appears, radiant in a tight suco. She asks him to see her show this evening, and he kisses her again. She says that she's on a series of gigs throughout the intrasolar system, and she has captivated Harry on the cruise liner. Mark calls Harry on his zip. It's a static channel on frequency. Jenna is dead. There were pytoid explosives in her tracer on Station 32. Harry tells him to get off Triton immediately. He wants to know why Mark fears for his life. Angelique tells him she'll be at the Matterhorn Hotel on Triton. Harry says he'll call her, but he's stunned about Jenna's death. O'Neill is on the moon, but they haven't met in a while. He last spoke to O'Neill 3 months ago via zip connection. 3 men appear on the outer edges of the pool. They all have pinpoint pulsars. He turns on the audio and broadcasts it directly to Rennie's zip. He's taken to Concourse 10 to a man whose left eye twitches. He's convinced he's about to be killed. He's placed in a smaller car. He's being sent on a freighter now, a shuttle, to Phobos, away from the area. And people are asking him who his section chief is. A tubby man with a pinpoint pulsar and a real ball hat, helping Mark Belkin, now is becoming untenable. He remembers this guy from Aunt Maddie's linseed orc bar. He had flattened this drunken wonder after enduring an hour of insults. The man's name was Grizz, and when he mentions his name, Grizz's face flattens. Bureau agents will be waiting on Phobos. Harry fights Grizz, and Grizz fires, puncturing the sidewall. Harry gets hit and goes out momentarily, but shoots Grizz dead. Takes his wallet and then grabs an air canister from the side cabinet. There's a large hole in the wall, and he shoves Grizz's body out into deep space. He claws his way to the main doors as the temperature drops and pounds on the door. He's dragged into a warmer area. He says that Harry Cobb tried to kill him and assumes the identity of Grizz. On Phobos, there are upscale shops and cafes. He also knew there were Turcot facilities on Phobos. The hatchway opens. Rennie is slouched near the upper railing. His eyes are bloodshot and wrinkles line his forehead. He's a little bit hungover, he said. Rennie called the Bureau. Patnode had talked to O'Neill. Harry has been reactivated as a Bureau agent called Bill McCabe as his alias. He's going to Triton as McCabe. He is to meet contacts named Pollux and Castor. O'Neill says they have to be careful. Something else was afoot. Jenna Belkin had traveled to the moon to meet with O'Neill just before her tracer explosion. O'Neill said that she was fearful for her life. Harry now fears Phil Severinsen will find out about his masquerading as McCabe and gives Rennie a slozzer for his headache. Jenna's death, according to Rennie, was no accident. Harry says he needs to talk to O'Neill, but he may not be able to contact O'Neill or Mark Belkin. Triton is a very independent place. As they move away, Mars becomes rusty beyond its lumpy moon. He wanted O'Neill to verify that Section 5 of the Intra Solar System Bureau had actually activated him to this name McCabe. On his zip were 3 texts from Angelique. In the secure communications room aboard the freighter, Rennie has bribed the crew with something in the transaction zone. Harry connects to Belkin's room at the Matterhorn. Rennie tells him that they'll be dealing with a Buck Wiley who's in charge of Station 32. He texts Angelique. Rennie begins arguing with someone off-channel. A tall man with whiz-cut hair and blue dog eyes, Buck Wiley, appears on the screen. He has a grating voice. He begins arguing with Harry. Harry gives him the phony McCabe information, but Wiley says that they don't want off-Tritoners to land on the moon. Plain and simple about Jenna Belkin, according to Wiley, it was an accident, and he won't be intimidated by the Bureau. Station 32 first housed uranium and metal miners from the Ice Mountains decades ago. There were wild stories about a-human sightings. Wiley makes fun of it. Legends, that's what happens to you when you have nothing to do, according to Wiley. He says that Mark and Jenna Belkin were walkers and walked around the dome at Station 32. He knows nothing about any ravine energy packets. He says, I just do what I'm told to do. There are forces operating here that you don't want to know anything about. Now Harry begins to wonder, was Jenna murdered or did it have something to do with the ravine packets? He tries calling O'Neill on a secure address. In the eyes of somebody, Jenna deserved to die. John O'Neill connects with Harry. He's on the gray-white lunar hills working for Harkin Energy. He talks about Jenna and says that something is not right about this whole thing, Harry. She fed 3.5 million people and revitalized the job base in the solar system. He thinks that energy is involved and that Jenna was under great pressure. It is odd that Jenna would steal ravine energy packets. He says you're the only man I trust to get to the bottom of this, Harry. And he also says that Pollux, the contact, sent Jenna's tracer out from the Matterhorn Hotel. Pollux may be a part of organized crime, a Lovinski operative. Calvin Glavin, who was fired by Phil Severinsen, is in charge of security at the Matterhorn Hotel. Jenna had help in her career, according to O'Neill. Section 5 field reports have been expunged by Alder. Agents are missing, but not listed on the reports. There have been payoffs to Jenna in Africa, either by the Bureau or the Cartel. She had not received droid payments, but may have been paid in ravine energy packets. Bernie Sorrell, part of Bartos Transport and part of the Cartel, is involved in the death of Jenna on the tracer. Lovinski has a retreat on Triton and has paid off people at Bartos Transport. Bartos handles the resources shipments. People have looked the other way, according to O'Neill. There's a vested interest in this resource operation. Then he speaks about Alder, how Alder is dangerous. What Harry finds out on Triton must be in a covert way. Norman Push is O'Neill's contact on Triton. 5 days ago they left the Jovian moon Io, and they are onward to Neptune. Jenna may have aligned herself with sinister powers. Pin-dot lights highlight the gray-lit valleys of Triton. A warning panel buzzer showed that they are being tracked from inside the bunker, the ghettos on Station 32. Neptune overshadows Triton and the Ice Peak Mountains. Wiley is also tracking them. Into the bay door of Station 32 is a white silcoplast tarmac. They know now they must find Mark. There are people ahead on the dock, including Wiley. He has the report of the death of Jenna Belkin in his hands. A Sector 16 ship left at 4 p.m. He keeps making snappy remarks, upsetting Harry. Bernie Sorrell was meeting with Jenna at the Matterhorn 45 minutes before the explosion, and now Sorrell has disappeared. They need to get out and investigate at a Warehouse 16. Harry turns to Rennie and talks about the Triton mentality where nobody seems to give a damn about anything. Rennie thinks that Wiley is afraid to talk. He goes out to meet the former bureau guy, Calvin Glavin. People on Triton just don't cooperate with what they're doing. They wonder if the Belkins were getting droid allocations in the Buntas. He thinks with the Pytoid explosives that Jenna was indeed assassinated. The Belkins had a habitat within a mile of the beam that scanned them on the ship approaching Triton. On the zip, Angelique texts him and asks if there's anything she can do. But Harry is more concerned right now about why Jenna Belkin was even out there. This may have led right up the chain to Severinsen, Alder, and maybe Lovinski. Inside the Matterhorn, they're drinking and listening to pinpoint music. Reddy is drinking a strange concoction called Red Amber. They are suspended within a bubble portal where their voices echo during their time at the club. He deciphers a strange Latin phrase that Wiley had muttered when they arrive at Station 32 about great danger awaiting them. He wonders where exactly Angelique has gone. A bioregressive human appears at the table and warns Harry about investigating anything about Jenna Belkin's disappearance and assassination. The bio and then Rennie are missing. He inputs Calvin's address into his zip. Harry gives Rennie's image to Calvin. Calvin seals off the hotel and says he's coming up to the table in the bubble. He then finds out that Valencia knows Lovinski. Nora Kachenko is in the bio. Wiley has been alerted to the entire fiasco. Rennie has disappeared, and it was just when Nora Kachenkov, the biograssed human being, showed up. Calvin seems to know that Bill McCabe is Harry Cobb, and he said he was fired due to the wrath of Phil Severinsen. He says that everybody is in great danger and talks about the prison on Station 32. Rennie was last seen 28 minutes ago with Nora Kachenkov in a pulsar. Harry is upset with himself for taking everything so lightly. He tells Calvin they need to go into the Buntas and find Rennie. Calvin prepares a tracer. At that time, he finds out Angelique Willard had lived at the Devon Terrace on Mars, Habitat 16397, right at the same time that Nora Kachenkov had lived at the same complex. There's a third person in that same complex, Sam Branson, a construction office coordinator. And Sam is an engineer now here on Triton. Angelique worked for the same company, and Nora Kachenko worked with Sam on the Ganymede country and habitats for Apollo Enterprises, which was part of the Cartel. Sam Branson is here in the Buntas where Jenna's tracer was blown up. Pytoid explosives were something that construction companies used all the time. He has another argument with Wiley. He wants to know who told Wiley to close down the Belkin investigation. Harry may have compromised his entire position for this woman, Angelique. Harry sips hot Jaffrin, a high-powered energy drink, as he moves with Calvin and the tracer over the Matterhorn and toward the ice mountains with blue Neptune in the background. Calvin mentions how cold it is down on Station 32 in the Buntas. He is told about Angelique. At this time, he learns that Sam Branson has a contract with Station 32 roads and structures. There's an open area near the signal habitat. It's a very poor area, and there are legends of outworlders here and ahumans. Why would someone in this poor neighborhood be tracking an incoming solar ship from a place like this? Calvin is in possession of something called a C-Zip, a highly sophisticated communication and computing device that's only available to members of the Intra Solar System Bureau. It is quite illegal. Harry believes that Rennie is still alive. Using the C-Zip data, he should be able to ascertain what happened here at Station 32 in the Buntas. Again, he talks about the Triton mentality and Wiley doing just what he's been told. He wonders where Bernie Sorrell has gone off to. As they move past the rows of narrow, silhouetted buildings, they are 15 kilometers away from the Matterhorn. He pushes in O'Neill's address and puts in his special code to O'Neill when they were in the bureau. Where's the White Rabbit? Down on the ground, the Buntafi are the local security, and further away is the Sarrazin, a vast underground prison. In the vertical descent, the ship is rocked as it settles on the pavement. He dons a Suco vest and cover hats. They hold their pulses and they move out into the buntas. It feels cold, as if it could snow. There are men smoking under the Hebons in the distance. Harry wants to use the C-zip to get sound etchings, vibrating pre-sound waves that brings back conversations. He follows the roadways to the corner. They locate the habitat where the signal had emanated from and begin the genetic sweeps and matter configurations. There's a smattering of Hebons inside. They take fingerprints and genetic remnants. He shines a Hebon up the staircase. The zip is picking up a mercury and selenium and radium Revine energy packets 20 meters above on the fourth floor. 6 hours ago, according to the zip, someone dragged something across the floorboards. There are fingerprint patterns all over the room. There are blood scans that are taken by the C-zip. Droplets are scattered at the corner. There is a body inside. Harry melts the old-style lock. Hebon tubes light up top. A man with straight hair is dead on the floor. Harry recognizes the man as Bernie Sorrell. His neck was broken. He thinks of the bioregress human being, Nora Korchenkov. There is a Revine residue on the floor of the habitat. Blood on the other side that's been wiped off. 2 types of blood. All the data has gone into the C-zip. Sorrell has only been dead for 15 minutes. They begin the sound reconstruction. The C-zip senses fully charged pulses less than a kilometer up the main roadway. They round the first floor landing. Nora Korchenkov and 3 men are approaching the stairwell below. Immediately, 5 men are taken down by Harry Cobb and Calvin Glavin. They head toward a storage room and their boots hit the upper staircase. They can't let Korchenkov or anyone else get the C-zip data. Outside, a multi-band pulsar tears up the sidewalk. There's a man in a land tracer that moves nearby. The tracer whooshes away in reverse with Harry and Calvin inside. They're onto another roadway and they shoot forward. Harry now searches the cantina ahead for more evidence. He is convinced that Sorrell would have to have been murdered by Korchenkov. It's at that time that people are talking about ahuman sites existing in the ice mountains. Korchenkov and her men enter the complex. They move to the second-level side table near the waterfall. Armed forces descend from all sides. Korchenkov kicks the pulsar from his hand. She has sharp-edged white teeth. He hits the floor hard. He's asking where Rennie has been taken, and she just says he's missing. All of your answers will be in the Sarrazin. The artificial daybreak broke cold. Bernie Sorrell is the one who bought the pytoid explosives that blew up Jenna's tracer. Harry does not want to go into the Sarrazin. He's brought into a habitat owned by Sam Branson. Sam Branson is a man whose left side of his face has been rebuilt. He has black eye scanners. They sit at a table recliner and drink Pequod wine and eat marinated chicken. Sam Branson says that his company has 4 months to complete the inner roads of this section of the Buntas. Who the hell is Bernie Sorrell? Asks Harry. Someone who killed Jenna Belkin. Branson tells him that Bernie Sorrell is someone who killed Jenna Belkin because she had become a threat. He asks where Rennie Coburn and Mark Belkin are right now. Did Bernie Sorrell actually kill Jenna? Who would need to kill Jenna Belkin? Someone who would benefit from her death. He thinks about Lovinski himself. The pytoids that blew up Jenna's tracer were stolen from Branson's construction bin 11 days ago. Branson then orders his guards to take Harry Cobb to the worst prison in the Intra solar system, the Sarrazin. Nobody will know you're in the Sarrazin. You'll never leave. The Buntafi thugs in dark suits escort him with the ice mountains in the background. Harry worries whether Calvin has recovered the C-zip and all the data. 2 pulsar rifles are aimed at his head as they bring him toward the Sarrazin. The silcoplast hump in the middle of the buntas has a terrible stench emanating from a long chute that extends down from the center. An older guy with a cigarette looks at him and laughs. A white-bearded man stares at him and moves as they lift him into the air. The old man cups his hand and says something about the waters of oblivion. The old man is vaporized by the guards and they carry Harry into the hole. He's shot down into the darkness. The old man's ashes linger in the air. He crashes onto a gritty surface where men are scattered like cattle in a huge stall. No one is in charge. It's at that time he hears about the narwhal, a carnivore with 14 legs and suction cup screeches that devour men every 3 days when they reappear inside the Saracen. All food is dropped in by the buntafi through the upper chute once a day. It's somebody's intention to let Harry rot in the Saracen. He's convinced that the Cartel or Alder had engineered Jenna's death, and what were the waters of oblivion? He looks back toward the courtyard outside the pit. One man says he's survived 50 openings of the narwhal. You're fated, my friend, unless they take you. Someone slams Harry's jaw and locks his arms. A fist is punched into his stomach. Tell us who you are, they ask him. Blood shoots across his face. Who sent you, Severinsen? He scampers quickly up a sidewall as the gnashing teeth of the narwhals try to reach him. On his perch, he thinks about the C-zip data, but he has to make it to the balcony and get out of here. Why did Mark call his zip in the first place? The narwhal lunges at his feet as he climbs to the top. He clutches the support and rolls onto the silcoplast floor. Pulsar fire emanates ahead. Harry heads for the staircase and goes up. He's at one of the portals slit as the Bunta's habitat materializes below him. There are cables attached to 6 towers. It's a 50 or 60 meter drop. With his wind against the wet clothing, he slithers onto the cable attachment. This is the actual edge of Station 32 on Triton, near the ice mountains of the moon. He takes off his suit and drapes it over the cable. The contingent reaches the top of the stairs as Harry leaps down the cable, holding on to his secret. He moves fast down the cable and rocks from side to side as the secret slowly begins to rip. Blue pulsar beams fill the midnight air. He lands below and careens onto a top of a roof, spinning like a top. As he stands, he sees the ice mountains ahead. The Buntas, Hebons, and the Matterhorn itself are several kilometers away. He's still on the roof to the edge and moves around the retaining hoods to gain access inside the building. But there is no entrance to the building. Traces break the night stillness. In a steady jog, Harry moves across the roof. As it's being swept by traces, he's caught up in the light. They're yelling at him from the tracer. McCabe, they yell, using his phony name. He scrambles onto a spiral walkway as the pulsar beams hit below. He flies into the darkness and hits with a force that knocks the wind out of him. He's at the surface level, which is parallel to the prison. His shoulder is throbbing. He finds himself at the entry to the dome and hoists himself onto an abrasive walkway down a rounded tube with yellow hebons. Did Mark know what happened with Jenna's activities? Neptune's blue tint is above him. He looks for a T-suit, but he can't find any pulses. He dons a red T-suit and moves into the outside terrain in an unknown area. He has 16 hours of air in the suit. He moves into the chambers and walks down a blue-tinted silcoplast ramp. Reduced gravity outside is evident, and the massive blue-green planet lingers over the ice mountains ahead. Red pulsar beams land all around him. He must have activated an external alarm. He moves on to an identical walkway below as the dome now overshadows him along the base. 3 hours later, in fatigue, he moves his visor beam. A smaller service ramp is to his right. The panel door is sealed shut. 5 men in armor suits, brandishing rifles, move forward. The door is clamped shut. They tell Harry, "We know who you are. Come with us." He dreads going back to the Saracen as a man with a Wiley-like buzz cut appears, and he calls the man Smiley. Smiley tells him that the inspector knows who Harry Cobb really is. They heard the escape report. They've been ordered to take him off the moon, to the Matterhorn and back to Mars. He wants to know if Rennie and Calvin are still alive, and where are the waters of oblivion. He couldn't trust telling them about Wiley or about the C-zip. The tracer is waiting, and they move inside the steel blue light of the tracer. Harry emerges near the tracer consoles. He needs to know if Calvin still had that C-zip. The tracer is set for the Matterhorn, and he takes off. As the tracer moves toward the Matterhorn, above the Hedwans and the Bunta, he descends slowly into the habitat area. There's a gray, dim haze in the station ice air. His boots touch the ground as he moves outside. His tracking ability is limited. With a pack strapped to his back, he moves along a storefront. He steps to the hallway door where Calvin left the C-zip. He enters the foyer in the illuminated hallway, but finds that the C-zip is gone. 5 black uniformed Buntafi now begin chasing him, and he has no pulsar. He moves into a 50-square-foot courtyard and says to himself that he should have left this condemned excuse for a moon. There's no way out. Random pulsar beams cut all around him. He needs to get to Warehouse 16, where Jenna's tracer flight emanated from, 16 kilometers to the west. Transport traces can bring him there. Inside, one of the younger Buntafi tell him he has no clearance. Someone scans him from behind, and he later finds out that Calvin has the C-zip. Rennie had been scanned in the lower levels of the Sarazin, which is not a good sign. The C-zip has been placed in the wine cellar of the 4th beam of the lower part of the Matterhorn. His contact, Nauman Pushk, has been murdered, and he's the one who set the tracer route for Jenna Belkin's tracer. Pushk was used. If he can get to the C-zip, they may be able to decipher the sound etchings and find out who is inside that habitat. He finds that Wiley is the one who actually got him out. It's at that time that a contact given by John O'Neill, Robert Cook, lets Harry know now that a team of Cobalt assassins are after him. Phil Severinsen, the assistant to Alder, had set up the team. Mark Belkin may have been a pivotal part of this entire fiasco. Mark was there when Bernie Sorrell was killed. He was ordered to get the Pytoids. Bernie was a cartel man. Harry is fearful that Alder will use the Commissar's position to take all power within the Intra solar system. It's at that time he learns that Alder used high-energy particles to kill Commissioner Nevis. Lovinski is a possible ally of Alder. Belkin wanted supplies delivered to a cave within the ice of Triton, which is very confusing. The mountains are thousands of kilometers long. He jogs to the end of the warehouse corridor. Where he talks to Wiley. Wiley takes him to a tracer on the top of Warehouse 16 on a maroon slab. Harry is still confused about the waters of oblivion, but he slowly finds out that Mark had lost all his investments. Angelique tells him, when you get to the Matterhorn, please text me. He says to Angelique when she gets to the Matterhorn to please text him. Kramer had met Wiley and 3 of his men. He holds Harry in his office. Calvin is dead because of that pea-brain Kramer, according to Harry. Kramer tells Wiley to prepare the detention room as Wiley brings him below. He's put into a cargo lift, then he's brought to another ship. He wants to know from Wiley where he's going, and Wiley says you'll know when you get there. The whole Belkin thing is out of control, according to Wiley. Wiley then lets him know that he's putting Harry on a private tracer that will leave the moon. O'Neill and Patno would have to get the C-zip, or maybe Angelique. He tells Harry that he's lucky to be alive. The thin black tracer takes off for Mars. But he knows that Angelique will be on Triton in the next 3 days. It's at that time he meets Jacob Lovinski. Lovinski tells Harry that Rennie might be alive. He escaped Lovinski's compound earlier. Bernie Sorrell was the one who attached the Pytoids to the tracer, and he doesn't know why. They needed Jenna Belkin dead, according to Lovinski. She was pressured by her husband, who wanted a monthly stipend. He risked all his droid bands and lost all his investments. It was a scheme, and Alder was vulnerable. Lovinski will help get Harry off Triton, and he tells Harry that he makes a living exploiting weakness. Then he tells Harry his friends have slipped away to the waters of oblivion. Lovinski tells Harry that he needs proof of the entire plot, and if he doesn't get it within 7 days, Angelique will be dead. At that time, they put him on the tracer to Mars. Harry is in an old box tracer that's descending down through the Martian atmosphere to meet John Patno. He's moving at a high-rated speed toward a remote chalky brown runway 647 kilometers from the Livingston Dome. There are 3 gray domes below. He depresses a panel that sends 3 floater parachutes skyward, but they're twisted. He's weightless as the craft spins out of control toward the Martian surface. But strangely, the box tracer begins to slow. Something has magnetically captured the little box, and he lands easily to the ground. Patnaud's white crop is visible, and he tells Harry that Felix Alder is about to become commissar. Inside the dome, Patnaud said that was an interesting entry, and he says that Harry looks like hell. Harry then tells him that Angelique can get the C-zip. He wants to know where his old boss, John O'Neill, is. It's at that time that Patnaud tells him that John O'Neill is in hiding. He's working with Desmond Turcotte. Harry needs to talk to O'Neill on a secure zip. O'Neill is at the Solace Canyon, a sanctuary of monks on Mars and Olympus Mons. Alder and Severinsen may have killed Nevis. Harry says this is one of those times he knew he was 100% correct. They head over the rocky plains for Olympic Mons and John O'Neill. He hasn't seen O'Neill for a while, but he readily reestablishes the relationship, and he remembers the leadership qualities that O'Neill had that made him what he was in the Bureau. They make contact with Angelique. She agrees to go into the wine cellar and retrieve the C-zip from the upper rafters. She will transmit the data to O'Neill. They need solid evidence for the prosecutor, Richard Merritt, to stop Alder and Severinsen. O'Neill tells Harry that he didn't think Jenna was even on the tracer. It was Mark Belkin who called Sorrell. But why would he call a man to plant pitoid explosives on a tracer to kill his wife? Again, O'Neill says she may not be dead. O'Neill does not know about the waters of oblivion, but he does say that Felix Alder will undermine the very nature of our system of government in the intrasolar system. 3 people from Division 5 will bring this forward. Without Belkin's testimony, it means nothing. He brings up more evidence of how Phil Severinsen had traveled to Africa, to the actual village where Nevis was killed. O'Neill needs to meet with Desmond Turcotte. He says, "Gentlemen, we have 6 days before the inauguration." Angelique enters the wine cellar later and begins transmitting the data back to O'Neill. As it's being uploaded, O'Neill remains remarkably cool. But Harry is slowly learning that Mark had double dealed with Lovinski, as had Jenna. Phil Severinsen is moving additional tracers into Martian orbit. Severinsen has begun questioning Patnaud's wife and family back at the Livingston Dome, and they know that O'Neill has left Harkin Energy in his offices on the moon. They're scanning Mars and monitoring all frequencies on the planet. O'Neill wants Patnaud to link through his own private zip at the habitat and then connect through the sanctuary. Harry begins to be worried about Angelique when he hasn't heard her communication. As they decipher some of the sound etchings, they find that Jenna Belkin was indeed alive, and in the room in the Buntas, Alder was definitely responsible for Nevis's death. 2 villagers are still alive in Africa that can testify against Alder. O'Neill then says that Patnaud should file an inaccurate flight plan to leave Mars, as they take another route to get off the planet. As Severinsen's 4 tracers move around the planet, O'Neill activates Operation Grandeur, a fake plan. Port 15 suborbit to Callisto. His real plan is to leave Port 15 suborbit to Callisto and then move by barge back to Station 32. But first, he says, "Gentlemen, we'll be heading deep into Mons and escape down an old train route that runs under the Martian surface." Again, Harry has not heard from Angelique and is worried about her safety. They move down the rock-carved tunnel as red Hebon security buttons flash. They get to a closed door, and O'Neill, being a high operative in the Intra-Solar System Bureau, knows the codes from the old trade wars. Merkel 43-6756. The door opens, and they move to a disengaged car, and soon are humming along the track of the abandoned tram. Zip panels are functioning. Getting off this planet, according to O'Neill, will be extremely difficult. They don teal-colored T-suits and monitor Phil Severinsen's frequencies. A murky image of Severinsen with all units sweeping Mons is available now on the screen. But Severinsen falls for the phony flight plan and begins chasing the vehicle back to Livingston. Harry, Patno, and O'Neill enter an abandoned plant and peel back the T-suits. The equipment is hundreds of years old. It was an electrical generating facility. A convict, Gus Slater, who was supposed to be in jail, appears up ahead. O'Neill got him released, and he's being well paid to drive them across the Martian surface so they can leave the planet. Only problem is that Gus Slater has procured a tour bus. The plan is that Gus will contaminate the area should they get caught and keep Severinsen away. And then Desmond Turcotte will actually get them into orbit. It's all for Severinsen's benefit. But O'Neill said, if we get off this planet, I'll be shocked. Severinsen is still baffled. The planet will be completely swept in 11 hours, and they are very close to the moving tour bus across the Martian surface. Livingston is only 7 hours away. All frequencies are off, and all talk has ceased as the scanner traces fly over. Desmond Turcotte wants revenge on Alder for bad trade deals. They escape Severinsen's sweeps and move to a Turcotte outer warehouse. But one of the traces lands over the hill and 3 Bureau agents arrive. One, Norman Herzog, puts them all under arrest and says they have committed treason against the Intra solar system. He moves them to a flying command center. Phil Severinsen will now rendezvous with them in an hour in orbit over Mars. Severinsen and Herzog are both asking where is the C-zip. Gus contaminates the area and simulates a radiation spill. O'Neill later shoots Herzog and they file into the rear room. They later escape to a barge in Mars orbit and then head for Station 32. Captain Neecroft of the barge is later killed by Severinsen. O'Neill has him hiding in the two-lane tubes, and they successfully elude Severinsen. Once they break free, O'Neill plays back the sound etchings that he's taken off the C-zip transmission. They hear a man yelling, they hear Jenna Belkin's voice, and they hear Bernie Sorrell being killed by Kurchenkov. And Alder and Severinsen are implicated in Nevis's death. Jenna says to Mark that you were a fool in contacting Harry. O'Neill then tells Harry if he hadn't taken these readings, they'd have no evidence. Harry is just shocked that Mark went along with Jenna's illegalities. They're going to have to find the waters of oblivion, and they're going to have to link up with Buck Wiley in order to have them testify against Alder and Severinsen. When they reach Station 32 and talk to Wiley, he says the waters of oblivion is a myth. The Bureau vessels with Phil Severinsen on board are 6 hours away from Triton. Rennie appears. Harry learns that there is a tunnel that leads out of the Sorazin down under the ice mountains, and they head down there with Wiley. Severinsen is right behind and ends up confronting them in front of the waters of oblivion. At that time, they meet Mark and Jenna, who get into a strange-looking tracer. The runway seems to go on forever, and they disappear into a burst of energy. Severinsen finally meets up with them and is ready to kill Harry, O'Neill, and Patno. Severinsen says that they've murdered Harry's beloved Angelique from a high elevation on the Matterhorn. She's dead. Harry rushes Severinsen, and as he prepares to die, everything slows down, and somehow things have changed. Harry is in a realigned time. The craft that Mark and Jenna Belkin had taken off across the endless runway was some sort of time device left by the A-humans under the ice mountains and the waters of oblivion. In this realigned time, Nevis is still alive. Harry meets with Nevis, and John O'Neill is now director of the Intra-Solar System Bureau. Both Severinsen and Alder are dead, and Harry mutters Angelique's name. The story ends when Harry is on a cruise liner again, sitting back and trying to readjust his life to what has happened. It's at that time underwater that he bumps into something as he's swimming. It's a woman in a one-piece teal suit. She removes her outer shield and says her name is Angelique. Harry wonders about time and time travel, how some people would be friends and lovers in any time, and it made little difference to the human soul.